first thing I start with my clients, it's called factual realization. When we have a big problem, a big situation, and they come to me for my help, I let them know that they are completely surrounded by every resource that you could ever want, that you could ever need. Factual realization. Because when we get caught up in problem, we think that the sky is falling, that everything is falling apart. Everything might have already fallen apart, but we are surrounded by resources to correct whatever situation that we are in. Look, we live in America. We have every resource we need, whether it's items or money or people. We are surrounded by it. Now, that doesn't mean it's just handed over to you. You might have to make 100 phone calls. You might have to knock on some doors. You might have to have uncomfortable conversations with people to have them help you out. But those resources are there. So that's phase number one. Just get down to the facts of what we have. And you know, speaking of that, I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it now. A lot of times we're our biggest enemy, and this is why. Living in a first world, living in America, we have a high baseline. We don't have to worry about clean water. We don't have to worry about where our food's coming from. We don't have to worry about transportation per se. We are surrounded by so many things. And if any one little thing goes wrong, then it just feels like everything is falling apart. How often have you had to deal with just the power being cut? Not because you didn't pay your bills, just the electricity being cut or the water being cut. I can remember a couple times in my lifetime because, you know, a child and there's a storm knocked out the power. There are people that live in countries where they lose power for 1/3 of the day or 1/4 of the day. Can you imagine that in America? If that happened to us, we would think that the apocalypse is absolutely here, but we don't. We have a high baseline. We're way up here. So what I do, and I help my clients do, is lower their baseline. In a sense, lowering their expectations. We live in a first world in America. So with that, we're trapped in a baseline. A baseline means what standard of living that we have. Now we're in a first world. So our standard of living is way up here. And I don't mean being rich or anything like that. We have clean water, we have food everywhere, we have every type of food. We're not worried about electricity going off. I mean, like sometimes somebody doesn't pay their bill and the power gets cut off, but that's not what I'm talking about. We don't have to worry about the power being cut in the entire city. So all those things are taken care of. We're not worried about, do we have access to education? Do we have access to jobs? Jobs are available. Now we may not want to work the jobs that are available, but they are there. A lower baseline than that, where a lot of people on this earth live, there's not always jobs available. Any kind of job, or clean water, or consistent electricity. So what that means, these people down here can be happy even though they have less. Up here, we're happy, but we have pretty much it all. So this baseline that we live in, which is really high, when something goes wrong, it upsets us easier than these people down here. And the second thing I work with my clients on is the proper philosophy. Look, I don't pull any punches when I'm working with somebody, okay? Wars are won in the will. So next time you have a tough problem, you might as well consider that. You're in a war, all right? And wars are won in the will. That means it's going to take some fighting to get through it, all right? And I'm the person to help you with the proper technique, and you're going to have to be willing to use those techniques and get into battle with whatever the problem is. Because whatever our problems are in nature, inside, with other people, it's like there's no mercy. Doesn't it feel like that sometimes? It feels like that to me sometimes. Like it's just no mercy. Okay, you have to be a warrior, and you have to use techniques to fight these battles. Because if you want to win, you're going to have to use them, and you're going to have to get after it. It's up to you. Now the third thing, and actually one of the most important things I can work with you on, is cultivating a fighting spirit. There are so many people that I work with that are battling depression, anxiety, all these different problems in their life, and they just get beat down and they're sitting down and they're just slumped over and all that. And one of the first things I do to help them cultivate a fighting spirit is to get them in the proper posture, the proper movements. If you move like you're losing, then you're going to feel like you're losing, and you're losing. If you start moving like you're a winner, be like, look, I'm going to fight this thing, okay? I'm down, but I'm not out. If you start moving like a winner, you start becoming a winner. Here's some physiology for you. The mind affects the body affects the mind. If I'm thinking there's no hope, there's no way I can win, there's no way I can get out of this situation, then you start taking a sad, defeated posture. But if I start thinking, you know what, I'm down, I'm not out, and there is a way, and you start asking positive questions. How can I conquer this thing? How can I win? And look at my posture. My posture starts opening up. I start moving different. I start walking different. And I start taking different thoughts on how we can win through this scenario. Now the opposite. The body affects the mind. Even though I may feel like crap, but if I just move differently, okay, all right, just move differently. When I move that way, the body affects the mind, and I start thinking positive thoughts. Positive, powerful emotions, powerful, positive thoughts. And then you can move forward from there. Let's get after it. Okay, let me break it down physiologically just a little more. You have these certain thoughts. Now, when you have a certain thought that is going to have an emotion, whether a positive or negative, you have a split second in time, just maybe a few seconds, to decide whether you agree with it or not, and then take the certain posture that coincides with what the thoughts were. So, for example, I have a negative thought, and if I agree with it, then I take that posture. When you take the posture, you are saying that you were in agreement with the negative thought that came in. By taking the negative posture, then you will feel the negative emotions. But if you don't want to feel those negative emotions, the negative thought comes in first. You're about to make a decision on how you're going to posture, and I go, that negative emotion gets cut short because you are saying to yourself that you are not in agreement with it. Imagine you had a keyboard right here, and the thought comes in, and the keyboard is your physical posture. Negative thought comes in, but I get up, and I am now typing in that, no, I'm going to conquer that. And that negative thought is not going to affect me emotionally. So say a positive thought comes in, but for some reason you don't believe it, and you go, Now you could have had positive emotions from it, but you didn't, because you had a positive thought, but you didn't believe in it, and you took a negative posture, so then you get a negative emotion. See how that works? Positive emotions to get a positive emotion. So number 4, you want to come up with a small plan to solving whatever situation you're dealing with. I've had clients where I'm helping them get through, stopping drinking alcohol or doing drugs and things like that, and they're thinking about, well, geez, how am I going to do this and never do this again? Well, you don't think about never doing something again. You think about something very small. How can we stop you from drinking alcohol for one day? An incremental victory. And you look at it as a victory. Hey, I did it for one day. And then we build it up a little further. Okay, did one day. Let's see if we can do it for 3 days. And then you achieve that goal. And you focus on just this small goal. Not thinking about the touchdown. Just move those chains just a little bit. Just get 5 yards. Not the touchdown. Just something very small. And then it won't overwhelm you. Because it's easy to get overwhelmed by the situations that we deal with. Very small victories. You can do it. Thank you for watching the entire video, and I want you to remember this. You absolutely have what it takes. Now I'm going to hit you with this. I'm not going to hold back. We live in a negative world. Okay, we have negative thoughts coming inside. We have people saying that we can't do this, you can't do that. I promise you, you have what it takes to get it done. And you will get through this scenario.